kind of three big groups. One, it has to do about connecting clouds, right? The mono cloud strategy, I think, is over, and it's not just a matter of connecting Amazon, Azure, IBM Cloud with on-premises. That was at the very beginning, but now people is evolving, and it's not just SaaS infrastructure. I believe that most of my clients now recognize that they're going to use many different clouds, and they need to be interconnected with the on-prem and between themselves. And now they are trying to leverage that advantage that the communications have evolved. SD1, for example, is helping to make this connection, and the communication brokers are also helping a lot to get Azure and OCI from Oracle already pre-connected, but also to be able to connect IBM Cloud with Azure, right? And with Salesforce. So this kind of project about interconnecting things, it's growing. It's definitely a trend there. There is also a second trend that it has to do about how to move to the cloud. That means not only lift and shift, and that there is a kind of big projects regarding consolidation and moving to trying to move everything into the public clouds. It's one strategy, but others just try to simplify their IT. They try to put the things in order. It's like when you relocate to a different country, right? You take the chance to get rid of the things you know you're not gonna use anymore. You try to put the house in order and just pack everything you need to move. And this is the basic things, kind of sanity checking, but there is a more profound transformation with, okay, we have the native workloads working there, the ones that are born into the cloud natively, but instead of just simply doing lift and shift, for this 80% of the workloads, and this is IBM technology you're probably familiar with, it's applications. For those applications that they were non cloud native, they need to be transformed. And we have seen a tremendous traction regarding containers. The platform as a service is still in early adoption, and we don't see a lot of, at least in my market, a lot of adoption with Cloud Foundry, okay, or even serverless is more for cloud native workloads. But moving pure lift and shift is okay. It's people that doing everything into lift and shift and then transform. The others that prefer to transform directly and move into containers. I will say that that's the main favor. And the third trend is that in this multi-cloud world, we are leveraging the licensing advantages of each cloud provider. We are leveraging the capabilities, I don't know, blockchains with IBM, for example, or Watson or AI capabilities from Azure, right? That making all these work together and make it work, it's not easy. So the challenge is on the complexity of the management. That's the third way. The more advanced customers, the bigger customers, that say, whoa, we cannot operate this with IT. This is not the old time. This is not just a shift in technology. It's a shift in organization and in procedures, the way we have to work. It's not simply escalating. We cannot create the SRE model from Google for operating, integrating people into development, the DevOps thing, so everyone together. That's not escalate so well when we have to work, with 100 applications. When we have to transform and modernize the core of their IT, right? So for the satellites, it could be all right. It's easy. It's very visual, customer of engagement. The customer experience. And when you go to the back office and you need to make things work in a smooth manner, consistent, that's where the issues start arising. People need control, a single pane of glass where they can see everything, a unique provider that are no niche. You remember the .com bubble when there was no omni-channel. Everything it was, in theory, everyone is going to be web and not brick and mortars. And then that suddenly changed, and the IT need to be flexible enough to be on the mobile, on the website, and on a banking branch, right, or in a retailer shop. That's the kind of thing that's happening now with multi-cloud. It's not just Amazon. It's not Amazon and on-prem. And gluing all this together and having one guy that is not a niche player for managing that piece, that's where the complexity is coming.
Right, and so there must be quite a bit of advisory and consulting and training and integration work kind of around creating all those solutions, across multi-cloud and using tools like containers and all the resources that your customers can get from Watson or Azure. So how are those kind of advisory services packaged as part of what you deliver? Do you have a separate organization of cloud consultants? How does your professional services team work? What do they look like?
That's a very good question, right? At the beginning, there was a cloud practice, right? So we can provide, and indeed, that in our organization, we have a more functional, development-oriented organization that we internally call GBS, a more infrastructure-oriented one that is GTS, and we have separate bodies in order to provide advisory about how to move to the cloud from the functional application standpoint of view, from the infrastructure standpoint of view, right? This last year melted into IBM services in a way that we can provide an end-to-end experience to our customers, and we can provide advisory services not only for migration but also from the strategy decisions, and also to build the architecture and a follow-on with a project office that can create a kind of center of excellence on cloud to guide them through the cloud journey, right? So now they are all that blended together with mixed teams where they have everyone brought their own expertise and their own background in order to serve the client, right? So this is what we are seeing at the moment.
And how do clients like to pay for those kind of services? Do they expect to be part of a solution?
Spain is a particular market. After working in Australia, I would say that things are a bit different here in Spain, right? The market is so mature, the competition is so intense that somehow, with few exceptions of a strategic consultancy such as McKinsey, Boston Consulting Group, with that few exceptions, clients perceive advisory services sometimes as a pre-sales effort, and that's making it quite difficult to put in value when you are still competing with others, right? And also, our Hispanic customers love proof of concepts that are basically minimum viable products in production, right? So the time for paper is gone, right? People don't want advisory from Deloitte, from other consultancies. They're doing great work in a wonderful paper that you put on the drawer, right? And that's what we did in 2009, 2010, 2011. People don't want pitches. People don't want PowerPoints. People is interested in teach me how, show me how, right? Let's run pilots. Let's do something. Join me in a transformation for one piece. And if that's successful, we can make it grow, right? So customers are a bit fed up of the traditional consulting. There is a new wave of a kind of consulting startups, to say somehow, in our market. and we also trying to adapt, including design thinking practices, trying to make a new kind of advisory, less consulting, less agnostic, and making them work, close to the customer, and make the stakeholder in the customers embrace this new way of working, because they need to change their organizations too, right? Like we did it, they also changing that. They are also changing the way they take decisions. So in terms of payments, obviously making this a small project and not big 5-year transformation project, it's helping. It's a kind of win-win short term, get return of investment in 3-6 months. Okay, that's usually working. Otherwise, when there are more strategic, sometimes what we are proposing is, okay, let's do this project, because sometimes they are afraid that the consulting guy and the execution guy is not the same people. Right? So, okay, let me do this piece. If you believe I have the widened information and knowledge to put some of value on you, I'll do it. And when I deliver, you choose. You choose if you want me to engage and execute, or if you want me leave. And if you want me leave, you pay me for the project. But if you want me to stay, I somehow will absorb, because that will be a multi-year contract, and I somehow will absorb my investment, because this is about the business, right? That if you simply leave it,
that's almost like converting a consulting project into a managed services contract.
Right. It's a kind of it has to fit the funnel of managed services through the consulting practice. Right.
Yeah. Well, sticking on the consulting, the professional services side, when you're doing those small projects, those proofs of concept, whether it's a paid engagement or not, how do you measure, or how does the customer measure success if it's been a successful project? Are there, SLAs or business outcomes that agreed?
Usually the acceptance has to do about some specific SLAs, right? And we try to skip subjective personal opinions in order to accept the engagement, the delivery of the deliverables of the engagement. And at the beginning, we try to set up what are the conditions in order to get the acceptance. Sometimes it has to do about SLAs. Most of the reluctancies that I have found, they are regarding networking problems or performance problems. Is what they are more concerned about. It's like, okay, good, let's do it, let's do this. But if this is not working, I mean, if the latency is too big, if the customer, the end user is to get unresponse for this number of seconds in their application, because of these situations, you have to guarantee a rollback, so I can go back to my previous situation, right? Mm-hmm. And if we are the incumbent, if we are providing already the service, we are in the conditions to do it. Otherwise, it's a bit difficult, because that will mean that we will reduce our fees.
Yeah, absolutely. Are there any particular sectors in Spain that require professional services more than other sectors? Is it a case of lacking skills in-house and needing them from IBM?
Okay, professional services, indeed, I separate two big blocks, right? One is the project-oriented scope. The other is the time and material environment, right? Like I'm looking for someone with these specific skills. I want a number, a name, and I want it here in my office, right? And and that's I will check the performance by myself rather than based on SLAs or projects with milestone and executions, right? In terms of projects, I see a lot of activity in utilities, the energy sector in particular, financial sector. There is a low margin at the moment in financial sector, and because it's low margin, the merchant acquisitions, it's in the air. We don't see those many in this way in Spain. It happened in 2009 because of the big crisis, and now we are envisioning this will repeat again. So there is a big demand to be in a good position in order to be the prime on a merge operation, right? So there are many projects in that sense that are coming to the market, right? In other sectors that because of COVID that have been very heavily impacted, such as airlines, tourists, hotels, right? These guys have already taken all the tactical projects they could in order to reduce costing. It was not the value proposition about, you know, transformation, digitalization kind of blue, right? They just said, I'm losing money and I have, my vessel is sinking and I cannot stand it. I'm losing employees. I cannot pay end of the month. We need projects, and they desperately needed for projects like 2 months ago to execute things very tactical, very quickly, in a matter of weeks, no, nothing else. And but they now had stopped, right? Because they exhausted that path, and now some of them are looking for more ambitious transformation projects. Some of them looking for outsourcings or trying to okay, this I cannot stand anymore. This is so precarious that this is what I have to be done in 2 months period, right? But I need to do something. I cannot stay this way, and maybe look for some exit, right? And for the public sector, there are some public sector is funneled basically with public employees in Spain, but there are semi-public companies such as credit rating companies, mixed capital between public and private companies, right? And these companies have kind of in IT, they have very good talent, some of them in-house, but they are not allowed to grow in headcounts, right? So this figure of China materials, bringing someone, you can package it or put it in a nice way in order to pass the, the, the approvals that they need to, right? But at the end, that's what they need. They need more people to keep growing, to make the business that sometimes is successful and works well, but because there have been some links with the public sector, they cannot hire so expansively as they're supposed to do.
Right. So when it comes to more managed services, how are your teams organized? Managed services, including operations and maintenance and support services as well.
Yeah, well, actually, from the infrastructure standpoint of view for management, we have a kind of journey to cloud where we envision the advisory services, the build area when we really construct the solutions for them. The migration is another pillar to populate that has been built. And the final stage is the management. Okay, it's like, okay, now I run it for you. Right? And we can decouple. What we have seen is that it's no longer about cloud and no cloud. It's like, it's like networking that is now part of IT. That's what we are perceiving in many of our customers. The squads You don't have people from storage, people from compute, and people from networking working separately in silos. They're working all together, and they have delivered solutions to the clients, right? Like the hyperconvergent infrastructure in physical terms, they are doing it now from the management standpoint of view, right? So from the delivery standpoint of view, we do it that way, and from the services standpoint of view. Regarding maintenance, that you mentioned, obviously in those engagements sometimes it's embedded maintenance. Uh, Obviously, if there is IBM products, it's easier. Sometimes customer wants to incorporate other maintenance, but that's basically it's evaporating quickly now that we are moving into the issue is not about including Oracle maintenance. It's about putting WebLogic into Oracle Cloud infrastructure, right? So it's a different mix now. So I'm not saying maintenance is being irrelevant because there are customers that are looking for multi manufacturer support, yeah, kind of single point of contact for maintenance, but they have a kind of their own go to market and their own flow, their own timings, right? And when there is the chance, we glue it together, but it's not really mandatory. It's something we may decouple if we need to.
Okay, so you do offer that kind of multi-vendor service integration.
Yeah.
If the customer.
Yeah, that offering has been on the market for 3-4 years in IBM.
So I mean, so are there any particular? Again, I asked you about how to measure the success of a project. What about measuring the success of a managed services contract or long-term engagement? How do you do that?
Well, the way we usually operate, and I think that's a practice worldwide, and it's not just IBM. There are some drivers that are common. One, obviously, it has to do about the profitability of the contract. Right? It's not just a matter of selling a lot. It's a matter to execute a lot and do it efficiently. Right? So a key driver it is and it always will be the margin. Okay, there is a huge demand on managed services to be efficient. That's why we incorporate automation in order to be more efficient. And why incorporate cloud? To do more things with less people, right? So that's definitely a driver that it's measured, definitely. A second driver that it's important is the customer engagement. How are we perceived? Are we perceived as slow? Are we perceived as rigid? Are we perceived as flexible and innovative? So whereas the NPS, the Net Promoter Score, is now a kind of mantra coming a bit later than in other companies. That we have regular NPS, not only during sales of the engagements, but during the contract and the managed service itself, trying to understand how we are perceived and try to anticipate problems before they rise, right? And about all that, obviously, in general terms, we also in the country we are measured in terms of market share, how we are our managed services practice is working in terms of market share compared with other players, and we especially in terms of products, we also measure the growth, how a product is growing compared with the market that we envision, right? So we have a forecast. The products serve multiple clients, so we need to understand not only how we are giving value to each engagement, where we are just a building block in terms of a service that we are providing to that account, but we also, in general terms, we need to figure it out. How we doing? Are we growing according to our business plan? And if that's growth align or above or below the market. Right? So that's basically the key indicators that we use.
That's really good. That gives me a really good understanding of how you measure your own success internally in managed services. What about for the client? How do they measure the success of their contract with you? Are there particular SLAs that they want you to deliver to? Are there particular business outcomes these days that companies want you to be able to deliver?
Okay, that's a fair point. Yeah, beyond the overall NPS thing, that it's more subjective, right? And they incorporate different key KPIs, and the KPIs usually are translated in SLAs. The traditional SLAs usually has to do with availability, about time of response, and also they also incorporate sometimes interviews, right? Personal interviews with the final users. They're not the IT guys, but the guys that grab the phone and said, "My laptop is not working," right? So that's the kind of thing that there has been in the market for a long time, right? Now what I'm perceiving is more, I want to end-to-end SLA. I'm not just interested anymore in see if the database is down or the server is down or Azure is down or is the communication telco line the one that is not working. I want to understand. I want to give key drivers that I can show to my business internally and demonstrate and show to them how we are doing in IT, like an IT provider, internal provider, right? So if I'm relying on you, Mr. DXC, Mr. CSC, Mr. IBM, or whoever, integrator, you want to do that part, right? So we are seeing more proactiveness, more, it's not just about failures, it's about taking preventive actions, right? And show me that you are doing your work and you are anticipating some behaviors that could impact in my business, right? So don't replace the server when the server is down. Help me to proactively find out when the server is going to be down, potentially with a high probability. And we are using some AI ops in order to work it out so we can recommend replacement or how the behavior of the patterns that your IT is following it make me recommend you something that is not a strictly a baseline of a capacity plan, but I can capable to anticipate that because you just make this new announcement, there are going to be a lot of activity in this area. There will be many calls because of COVID, and they want to understand if they can reduce the bill because they are not using any more, I don't know, printing or whatever. And we can recommend what is going to happen so we can make the IT more responsive and avoid bottlenecks, right? But this is a journey, from my point of view, this is absolutely personal. This is a journey that it will take time, and it's not so easy to model, to do the modeling of that, okay? People have the need, people express the need, that's what I want, but they are not, so it's not that easy to model in a contract, right?